Boys and girls, happy Thursday. I hope everyone is doing okay, and I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. All right, so we are coming to an end with the comparing and contrasting. Last week, we talked about comparing and contrasting two informational text, and this week we've been talking about comparing and contrasting to literature text based off of the 5 story elements. So today, remember, our central question is, how can I compare and contrast two texts written by the same author? Today, what we will do is we're going to review some vocabulary by looking at an anchor chart that I spent a ton of time on. We're going to watch the theme Brain Pop Jr. video. We're going to look at the theme anchor chart and talk about how we find theme. We are going to complete task cards and determine the theme of them. And then I'm going to model how to compare and contrast two stories with the 5 story elements. And then you're going to do the same, but on your own. So, move myself off screen. This is the anchor chart that I created. So, story elements. The pieces are part that make up a story. Every piece of this is important. Every piece is important to complete the puzzle. Characters are the people or animals that are important to the story. The setting is the time and location the story takes place. The plot is the event that happens. It's the events that happen in a story and how they are related to each other. The conflict is the problem and the solution of a story. And the theme is the big idea the author is trying to express. We're going to start with this Brain Pop video.
In this story, Captain Moby and First Officer Mia land on a strange planet. They come across a giant, scary-looking alien. Captain Moby doesn't trust the alien, so he sets his phaser to stun. But First Officer Mia thinks they should talk to the alien and figure out the problem. The first officer listens to the alien and calms it down. It turns out the alien was upset because a ship landed on its birdbath. What do you think the theme of this story is? What is theme? The theme is an idea or message explored in a piece of writing, artwork, or film. The theme might be about our feelings, how people treat each other, or about something in our world that can be better. The theme is often a big idea about our lives. Well, in this story, the alien seems angry and scary. But the first officer learns about the alien's problem. She realizes that it's their fault. The theme of the story is that you should get to know people before you judge them. Right, Moby. The theme isn't usually said outright in a story. You have to infer and look at details and use what you know to come up with an idea. How do you find the theme of a story? As you read, think about the characters. What are they like? What do they find important? In The Cat in the Hat, the cat loves to have fun and break rules. This causes a lot of trouble. The fish wants to keep things orderly and warns the cat to follow rules. The theme of this book is about having fun, but making good choices. When you figure out the theme, think about the plot. The plot is all of the events that happen in the story. What happens to the characters? How do they feel about what happens? The theme of The Tortoise and the Hare is about working hard and not being overly confident. You can also find the theme of a story by thinking about the conflict. What is conflict? A conflict is a problem. As you read, think about the conflict in the story. A character might have to carry out a difficult task. overcome a big fear, or face another character. Think about how the character feels as he or she goes through the conflict. How does the conflict get solved? How do the characters change? A story about arguing friends might have a theme about accepting one another and forgiveness. It's helpful to take notes as you read. You can look them over to help you find the theme. What's the theme of your book, Moby? Let's see. In Charlotte's Web, Wilbur arrives on a farm where other animals aren't so friendly. But a spider named Charlotte promises to be a good friend. Soon, Wilbur finds out he's in big trouble. But Charlotte has a plan to save Wilbur. She spins webs with special messages. She works really hard, often spinning through the night. Her plan works and Wilbur becomes a star. Later, Charlotte lays eggs and Wilbur promises to protect them. He sticks by his promise and guards her eggs. To figure out the theme, think about the conflict and the solution, or how the conflict gets solved. The conflict is that Wilbur is in big trouble. The solution is that Charlotte spins webs with special messages. She promises to help him, and she does. I think the theme is about keeping promises and what it means to be a good friend. You're right, Moby. The theme is an idea that sticks with you long after you finished reading the story.
All right. Now let's take the easy quiz. What is the theme? What is the conflict in The Cat in the Hat? Some of you guys may have never read the story before. But is it the cat wants to break the rules, but the fish does not? Is it the fish likes to keep his home tidy and organized? That cat cleans up the mess before the parents come home? Or the fish lives in the same house as the kids and their parents? So only one of these sounds like a problem, a conflict. And it's the cat wants to break the rules, but the fish does not. All right. Which clue can tell you about a theme of a story? Is it the number of characters in a story? How the characters act and feel? When a story takes place, or where the author lives? It doesn't matter how many characters are in a story. So it's going to be how the characters act and feel, because there could be a disagreement. In Charlotte's Web, Charlotte and Wilbur are protagonists in a story. What is a protagonist? So it said that in the video, but we didn't go over it. A protagonist is the main character. Mia reads a story about how community members donate books and money to save a library. What might the theme be? Is it A, you can learn new skills from reading books? B, when you work together, you can do great things? C, sometimes you should ask for help when you need it? Or D, a library is a good place to meet community members? Well, if the community members, everyone in the community is donating, I would say when you work together, you can do great things. And the last question, the moral is a lesson of a story. It can also be the theme. What is the moral of The Ugly Duckling? So The Ugly Duckling is a story about a duck that comes out and he's really ugly. And people pick on him every day, and he keeps growing up, and he becomes a beautiful swan. But everyone was so mean to him that he's not friends with anybody anymore. So it would be, don't judge the others by the way they look. All right. So back to this. All right, so theme. Remember, theme is the big idea of this story. It's a message that the author is trying to express to the readers. It has to be inferred. And what this word inferred means is that the author's not going to come right out and tell you what it is in the story. Think about the Little Red Riding Hood. The author doesn't say that the theme is not to talk to strangers. You have to use what you already know, your reader brain, and what the author's telling you to figure that out. Here are some common themes: jealousy, friendship, cooperation, honesty, hope, courage, kindness, adventure, equality, and perseverance. So, how do we find the theme of the story? To find the theme of the story, you have to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what is the story about? 2, what is the meaning behind the story? And 3, what is the lesson? Theme is the central idea of the story. Here are some examples of theme. Home is where the heart is. That means wherever you have someone that loves you or you love someone, that's where home is. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. If you persevere through something and you get through it and everything, you're going to be stronger. You're going to be a stronger person. Honesty is the best policy. So being honest is the greatest thing that you can do. All right. So now I'm going to read some task cards and we're going to decide whether the theme is jealousy, honesty, courage, or friendship. All right. So I'm going to pull it over to the middle to read them. So the spelling bee was nerve-wracking. Paul didn't want to go to the front of everyone and mess up. However, he went out there and did a great job. Excuse me. All right. Is this jealousy? Is someone being jealous? Is someone being honest? Do they have courage, or are they trying to find friendship? So courage, he's being brave. Let's pull this next one to the middle. All right, Paul had $4 laying on the floor. Paul found $4 laying on the floor at Walmart. Although he needed it to buy a new Hot Wheels car, he turned it in. That's going to be honesty. He could have kept it, but he didn't. It was a test. It could have been a test. All right, tryouts for the baseball team were today. Jeff was the youngest kid trying out. He was terrified, but still did his best. Is that going to be jealousy, honesty, courage, or friendship? That's going to be courage. All right, for this next one, I want you to pause this video and see if you can figure it out. All right, Randy heard 2 boys laughing at his pal John. He confronted them and told them that they were being bullies. So this one could be 2. If you said courage, you are correct. If you said friendship, this is correct. Because he needed to work up the courage. He needed to be brave to confront these people, but he was also being a really good friend. So I'm going to put it under friendship. All right. Heather saw Jenny playing by herself at recess. She immediately ran over to Jenny and invited Jenny to play with her own friends. Is this going to be jealousy, honesty, courage, or friendship? Well, it has the word friends in it. They are friendship. It's friendship. All right. When Jeff saw his friend's new baseball bat, he immediately felt like his wasn't good enough. All right. If you see that somebody got something new and you think, mine's not good enough. Oh my goodness, Miss Bennett got new shoes. My shoes are not good enough. I'm jealous. That would be jealousy. Gretchen wasn't sure why the new baby sister was getting all the attention, but she needed to fix that. All right, if you are upset with someone because they're getting more attention than you, that is also called jealousy. It's when you want something that someone else has. All right, and this last one. When playing in his grandmother's room, Rob broke her lamp. He didn't want to tell her, but he knew that he had to go tell her. All right, so he could have blamed it on the cat. He could have blamed it on the dog. He could have blamed his poor old grandmother and said, "Grandma, you broke that lamp. I saw you knock it down." But he didn't. He went and told the truth. He was being honest. So that's honesty. All right. So now what we have to do is we have to read 2 passages, and we are going to compare and contrast them with a couple of questions, this graphic organizer, these questions. So your graphic organizer is going to look a little different, but it's going to be kind of like the same thing. So remember my steps that I like to do first. I like to go and read all of the questions before I read the passage. so I know what I am looking for. Sorry, I keep yawning. So, how are the settings different in the two stories? Okay, so the setting's going to be different in both stories. We need to figure out how. Are there any similarities in the plots? Explain. So, how are the plots the same? How are the plots different? Explain. Identify a theme for both stories and describe how both stories have this theme. And then the last one, how are the characters different in the two stories? All right, let's begin reading. Grandtown is in danger. Grandtown is the most wonderful place with the most wonderful people. That's how Jet and Flash feel, at least. These two superheroes live in Grandtown, and they always work to keep the town as safe as possible. One morning, Jet and Flash were flying around from building to building, making sure the citizens below were safe and sound. Jet pointed to something suspicious. Flash followed her pointing finger and saw what she was referring to. There were two boys on a playground flailing their arms in the air, who appeared to be yelling at each other. Jet and Flash typically saved people from criminals, but they had to solve this problem too. As they flew closer to the two boys, the boys stopped fighting to look at them. Jet started by asking them what was going on. As they were listening to the boys discuss their problem at hand, they learned that there was only room for one more kid on the kickball team, but they both wanted to play. Jet sighed because she couldn't believe how the boys hadn't just thought to take turns right away. She tried explaining this to the boys, but at first they wouldn't listen to her. Flash tried to also explain that fighting with your close friend because of a kickball game is not worth it. The boys finally worked it out and decided to take turns kicking and catching in the outfield. All right. Now, a classroom fight. Miss Richards' classroom was split up into 4 groups for a group project. They had just finished reading the Lorax, and they were making a chart to describe the changing setting throughout the book. Suddenly, she heard raised voices coming from one of the groups. You use the brand new markers every single time we're in a group. You won't let anyone else help, one voice shouted. It doesn't matter. I have the best handwriting in the group. Our poster needs to look good, another voice answered. Miss Richards scanned the room, trying to find the source of the yelling. She found Madeline and Kate bickering in group 4, so she immediately walked to them to calm them down. Kate explained that Madeline wanted to use the brand new markers for their poster and wouldn't let anyone else use them. However, Madeline claimed they wouldn't get a good grade unless she wrote on the poster. She thought that she was the only one who could make it look good. Miss Richard started by explaining that to Madeline that she was being hurtful to others and putting them down. She also explained that what they wrote on the chart paper was what mattered. How pretty it looked did not. She finished her speech up with, you girls have been friends for too long. You shouldn't fight over silly markers. All right. Now let's read some questions and answer them. So, how are the settings different in the two stories? Well, if we go back to Grandtown is in danger, this story takes place in Grandtown. And Grandtown is a fictional, it's a fantasy world. It's not real. And this takes place in a classroom, and we can tell that just by the title, A Classroom Fight. So, we're going to say Grandtown is fantasy. And how do we know that? The superheroes All right. So the superheroes are flying through town around buildings and they end up at a playground. So that setting kind of changes from the beginning to the end. It starts with just Grand Town and then it ends with them on a playground. So a classroom fight is more realistic. It happens in a classroom. All right. So, are there any similarities to in the plots? So, remember, plot is the events that happen in the story and how they relate. So, there are some similarities within both plots. Because both of the plots, they include a fight or a disagreement. Include a fight or disagreement. In both stories, who helps them solve the problems in both stories, solve the conflict in both stories? Well, it's they're solved by the help of another character. So, for example, in Grand Town is in danger, Jet and Flash help the boys resolve their disagreement. But in the classroom fight, Miss Richards helps the girls. So, in both of the stories, the conflict is solved. Not spelling right. With the help of another character. Jet and Flash help the boys, and Miss Richards helps the girls. All right. Now, what are the differences in the plots? So we talked about how they are the same. Now we're going to talk about how they are different. So the biggest difference is what the children are fighting over. So what are they fighting over in Grand Town is in danger? Well, if I go back and a highlight, we know that there's only one extra spot on the kickball team right here. But they both wanted to play. And if we go to a classroom fight, we know that Madeline is not letting anyone else write on the paper. She wants to do it all by herself because she said, my handwriting is the nicest. Yours sucks. All right. So the difference is in what in the plots is what the kids are fighting about. In Grand Town is in danger because we remember we have to be specific when we're referring to our answers for referring back to the text. There are two boys, and they're fighting over who gets to be on the kickball team. Well, in a classroom fight, there are two girls fighting over markers. All right, boom. So now we need to look for a theme for both stories. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to think. So Jet and Flash, they kind of tell the boys that fighting over a kickball game is not worth it. And Miss Richards tells the girls, "You two have been friends for too long. You shouldn't fight over silly markers." So I'm going to say that the theme for both stories is fighting does not solve problems, because it doesn't. When I was younger, I used to fight my siblings, and it did not solve anything. We just got in more trouble. So in Grandtown, the boys' problem was not solved with fighting, but it was solved. They decided to share. In a classroom fight, their problem was not solved with fighting, but was solved when Madeline decided to let everyone write on the poster. All right, our last question. This last question says, how are the characters different in the two stories? Well, the obvious, these were two boys fighting, and these were two girls fighting. And these boys, when the boys were arguing, they were flailing their arms and in each other's faces. But when the girls were arguing, they were only using their voices. So, the Grand Town characters were boys, and I'm going to say their fight was getting physical, which means they almost started fighting with their hands. In a classroom fight, the characters were girls, and they fought using words only. All right. So I have answered all 5 questions in complete sentences. I also just realized that I'm not on the screen. So today, boys and girls, your assignment is going to be kind of the same. So when you get into Canvas and you click your homeroom button, then your reading button, you are going to see the days of the week, and you're going to click Thursday. When you click Thursday, you're going to see here today's date, 211 story elements in a passage. So you're going to watch this video. You're going to watch the video over again if you need any help. And then you're going to click your assignment, read the directions, and then you're going to be reading The Boy Who Cried Owl and The Cat That Cried Mouse. You're going to be reading both of these, and then you're going to compare and contrast their setting, events, and theme. Remember, events is just another word for plot. So you're going to tell me how the two settings are the same. You're going to tell me how the two settings are different. Where do they take place? What time of day do they take place? You're going to tell me how the events in the two stories are the same. You're going to tell me how the events in both stories are different. Then you're going to tell me the theme. What is the big message, the big idea that the author wants you to know? How are they the same? And then you're going to tell me how they're different. After you're finished with that, you're going to hit the blue submit button, and your teacher will be able to give you some feedback. All right, boys and girls, have a good day. See you tomorrow. Bye.